Good afternoon, directors and everybody else. Thank you for taking the time out to come to today's meeting. We are adjourned. No? No? Nobody's, okay. We have nobody online at the moment. There we go. Okay, so confirmation of quorum, which we have. We're going to call the meeting to order. And we'd like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Likwata people. And we have the adoption of the public agenda.
So moved, Colburn.
Colburn. Second. Thank you. Director Wally, second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Petition and delegations. Today we have Kevin Brooks, Division Manager for Planning of McElhaney. And he's going to make a presentation regarding the subdivision frontage relief application by Couverton Timber West Forest and for Reed Island. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Chair and Directors, for having me here today. Give me a moment while I attempt to utilize technology that I'm not familiar with. So yeah, thanks again for your time. I have a brief presentation to touch base on the proposed lot line adjustment and frontage relief request that the board will be looking at later today. I wanted to provide a bit of a presentation. I didn't have the opportunity at the ASC, just due to some transitions of staff that we had lost, so we were unable to attend. But there's a little bit of additional information that I think that would help provide some context to this overall application and the rationale behind the proposal we have before you. So the proposal itself is actually a lot line adjustment. There's 6 existing parcels, and we're looking at adjusting those lot lines to bring these parcels into greater compliance with the existing regional district bylaws. The parcels themselves were actually created in the early 1900s during one of the original land grants. At that time, frontage requirements and things of that nature were non-existent. And with the parcels now that we now have, we're going through to try to bring these parcels in greater compliance with both Bylaw 64 and Bylaw 1460 of the regional district. The zoning on the parcels are 431. There's no intent to change this. The intent is that the zoning will remain the same. As you'll see here, the minimum lot size for a 431 parcel is 16 hectares. Our proposal does not plan on making parcels smaller than 32 hectares. And for context, that's 80 acres. And one of the big things with this proposal is that you'll see is that the actual scale of what we're talking about here is quite large. We're talking about hundreds upon hundreds of acres, and I'll touch base a little bit more on this a little bit later in the presentation, just to give some context of scale of what we're speaking about with this request for the relief to the frontage requirements. And so what we're asking for is actually a relief to the this provision of the in the regional district's bylaws, which requires a 10% frontage both on water and on land. Just so you know, that's actually a very unique provision to this area. Nowhere else in BC that I work have I seen a provision where it requires both the 10% for both a dedicated road for access and water. So that's actually quite an interesting provision that you don't generally see anywhere else in British Columbia at this time. So when we look at our proposal itself, this just gives you a side-by-side of the existing lot configuration that was created in the early 1900s and our proposed lot configuration. The scale of this, like I said, the smallest parcel we're proposing is 32 hectares, which is 80 acres. The largest parcel is well over 150 acres, which is about that 70 hectare range. One of the conversations that happened at the ASC is this idea of panhandles. And looking at the scale, it could be construed that what we're proposing here are panhandles. However, when you look at a panhandle lot creation, a panhandle is created specifically for access and access only. Panhandles typically range from about 6 meters to 20 meters wide. Our smallest frontage on any road here is over 106 meters, which is greater than the length of a football field. even on that parcel where that does have that 106-meter frontage, which is Lot 4 that you see here, there's an additional 280 meters of frontage on a newly dedicated road. The forestry roads in this area are privately owned roads at this time, and we're proposing that all of those roads actually be dedicated as part of this lot line adjustment to provide for public access through this area. So like I said, it's a quick presentation, a quick summary to provide some sort of overall context to the actual proposal, but to also allow for any questions you might have. Like I said, we're not proposing new parcels or anything. We're adjusting lot lines to bring these parcels into greater compliance with the existing zoning bylaws and bylaws of the regional district. Our smallest lot that we are proposing is 32 hectares, and like I said, the largest parcel is well over 150 hectares at this time. And the smallest frontage, as I said, is 106 meters, which is, sorry, feedback, well over the length of a football field itself. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for clarification purposes or anything of that nature.
Thank you. Directors. Who's first? Director Mowini.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Kevin, for your presentation and explaining. I do have a couple of questions. Until this application came before EASC, I was not familiar with Couverton, the company. So I did a little research, and I noticed that community features heavily on the Couverton website. The website states that they work with communities and partners that help shape places and recreational spaces, and that you work closely with neighbors to design neighborhoods that consider community amenities and park-like features. The application is for Eastern Reed Island. Reed Island is a water access only, remote by some standards community, but it is a community with a school, a community center, a monthly newsletter, and a post office. Someone's having an emergency.
That was the chair.
So I guess I'm curious because, you know, Couverton is saying that they work with communities, but in my communications with the residents of Reed Island, didn't hear that that had happened with this application. There was 100% surprise from Reed Islanders when I reached out to them when I saw this application on the Electoral Area Services Committee agenda. And in less than 48 hours, I received over 30 emails. And I would like to tell you that there is an appetite to grow the community. But what I heard is that there is a desire for inland lots to be available because they would be lower cost and attainable to younger people and families that would like to build wild island homesteads, and hopefully for folks to be able to become year-round residents and keep children going to their school. And they want neighbors who want to build a community with them, and they didn't see that this application was forwarding that vision. And they were also surprised that there had been no community communication with them. I also heard that there is one section in the proposal which is a significant community asset. It's called Hotel Bay, and it's attached to the Blockhouse Orchard. It's a picturesque gathering place which has been used for potlucks and weddings and fruit gathering because there's an ancient orchard there. It has been a community gathering spot for so long that the hotel has actually rotted off its foundations, but it still remains there as a reference to the history, some of the history of Reed Island. So, you know, you also said that you weren't changing anything, but when I look at your application, there are 7 lots, and now you're turning them into 6. And you're also mentioning that the smallest road frontage is whatever you said in meters, 100 meters. But when I look at those lots and I read the bylaw for the rural land use bylaw for Desolation Sound, which covers this area, it definitely says no to panhandles, and they define panhandles as a narrow area to access the lot. And to me, those look like panhandles. So, yeah, I guess my question would be that since this application has come into the community view, the Surge Narrows Community Association has reached out to me to inquire how they can advocate for Hotel Bay to become a community park. Perhaps you could share with me how the Surge Narrows Community Association can move forward with a conversation about this.
Through the chair, thank you very much for your questions. Some of them I can't answer specifically because I don't work for Couvarden themselves, but I can give you a little bit of context of Couvarden, what they do, and that might help provide some clarity. In regards to the rest of the questions with regards to Hotel Bay and that, I'll reach out to our client and chat with them to get you some answers in regards to those specifically. So for Couvarden themselves, Couvarden is an arm of Mosaic Forests. They're the real estate arm, so they basically manage all privately held lands for Mosaic. And so all of it. And so you can imagine the breadth of that portfolio. These are some of those lands, but those lands range from Victoria all the way up to Port Hardy. So what they do is, as they go through their lands, lands like this that are historic lands that were granted over 100 years ago, they work to bring those into compliance with bylaws throughout. And so that's one of the things they do. This is a large lot, bulk, property, rural land set. That's one thing they do. The other thing they do is something like, if you're familiar with Jubilee Heights here in Campbell River, where they do very specific urban forms of development. And so they have this broad range of actually work that they do, from rural lands that you see before you today to very urban properties. So that gives you sort of a scope and scale. In regards to outreach to the community, like I said, again, I apologize. We should have had someone here at the time of the AASC meeting so you could ask questions of us. One of the things that we should have done is, at time of application, should have reached out to yourselves at that time to actually have some of those conversations. And that is a learning experience for us. We did, like I was saying, we had some staffing transitions as one of our staff members moved back to the city of Campbell River.
Director Sinat.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the area developing. I was probably since the time I first became a lawyer, involved with the Birdwood Bay Settlement Company, which no longer really exists, but very familiar with what happened with the breaking up of all the lots that are surrounded by your proposal. I know that there was a lot of discussion with MOT and public access requirements at that time. Is there going to be any discussion with provision of public access, particularly when you're talking about the hotel landing? And I know what you're talking about, that historic landing, which people do use in that area. There's also a bunch of oyster leases that were historically there. And I would think that that would be a concern going forward, that people have historically been using any deep water anchorages because of the way that they access this island by water. As well, is the current situation that it's now been logged? Like, is it completely logged?
Most of it, according to Islanders.
Oh, okay. And it's up to the owner to how they want to handle that going forward. I mean, I don't really have a big issue with redoing lot lines. I'm just wondering with the process that going through with MOT and such, because I know I think on this old map, you have the road through the Birdwood Bay area is dedicated now to MOT. So the other roads that don't connect, that's where you're talking about further dedication?
Yeah, through the chair to Director Sinat. That's exactly it. So if you look on the drawing on the right-hand side, you'll see that we're proposing to dedicate the existing forestry roads for public access through the site. So those existing roads that are fundamentally highly used by the public now are considered private forest roads. Those would be actually dedicated to the ministry and become public roads for access.
And as I understand, that's a significant investment from you guys, because you have to bring the roads up to a certain standard, and you provide drainage, because I know they have significant transit issues with falling trees and things on these roads on Reed Island.
Yeah, through the chair to Director Sinat. Yes, when we dedicate anything, we need to bring any dedicated road up to the standard of the ministry for these areas. At this time, I apologize, I can't remember what the actual cross-section requirements are for these particular roads, but they will need to be upgraded to meet the ministry's requirements.
So back to my issue about public access dedication to the water. Have you got any feedback yet on that?
Through the chair, at this time, no, we have not.
Is it your expectation, given your experience, that you'll be looking at providing certain public access dedications?
Through the chair, another great question. Through the Land Act, there is a requirement to provide public access to water, and I can't remember for rural, I think it's every 400 meters or something of that nature. So at time if this goes to the ministry, there is a legal requirement that we'd have to actually provide some sort of access to the water. That'd be defined by the approving officer at that time, and like I said, it's a legal requirement under the Land Title Act.
Thank you. I just don't know whether it's worthwhile putting it out to the members of the public, because the one I was involved with, it ended up being a very useful public access that was dedicated, so it's very, very used by the community at Birdwood Bay. And if there are other locations, perhaps the community could advocate for your client to maybe reduce the requirements, so long as the ones or two that they do provide are actually productively useful for the community.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Thank you very much, sir. Director Colburn.
I'll make a motion to receive the delegation.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Vanessa.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. F, adoption of minutes.
Move adoption, Mowini.
Thank you.
Second, Colburn.
Thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Business arising, none. Public consideration, none. Motion, motion, none. Chair's report. Is that where I was going to talk to you about? Yeah, that's it, eh? Yeah. So just had to double check. At AVICC, I had a brief opportunity to speak to Chair Jack from the ACRD regarding our resource committee that we're looking at forming with Mount Waddington. And he said he was very interested in getting involved. So what would happen from there is there is a motion that is floating around. Am I not correct? Edith has that. Now, to get to Mr. John Jack and that RD involved with us, because as we all know, with their strength in numbers. However, the only problem that I have here today is I cannot make a motion. Director Kerr, thank you for coming. Director Dahl.
I'm much younger. Just if you're trying to distinguish, slightly shorter too. I'll move that the SRD board write a letter to the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District inviting them to participate in the SRD RDMW Natural Resources Committee.
Second, Chapman.
Discussion? Sorry, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you. Do we have to do a, receive the verbal report from the chair?
Motion to receive.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Good. Okay, done. Okay. Committee chair report. That the draft minutes of the Electoral Area Service Committee meeting held on April 12th, 2023 be received.
Move receipt, Mowini.
Second, Vanessa.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Strathcona Gardens, that the draft minutes of the Strathcona Gardens Commission meeting held on April 12th, 2023 be received. Anybody? Thank you,
Second
Director
it.
Wally. Sorry, who seconded that?
Susan?
Thank
Senate.
you. Susan? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Staff reports. That the report from the CAO be received on the ESA development permit, DP 1D, excuse me, 23. Anderson. Director Wally.
Second, Colburn.
Second Colburn. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the environmentally sensitive area development permit DP 1D 23213-1 Anderson, as attached in the April 12, 2023 report from the CAO be approved, and that the corporate officer be authorized to issue the permit.
Move recommendations.
Thank you.
Second.
Director Rice, Director Colburn, discussion. CAO, anything to add? No? No discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Oh, we got a couple of people online now. Okay, number 2, development variance permit application, DV2D 23, that the report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director
Second,
Rice.
Colburn.
Director Colburn, second. Discussion? Director Rice.
Just wanted to add that I note that there was some correspondence on this, and I just want to put it out there for the public record that there was some concern stated in some of those correspondence. But again, going back through the staff report, I think the executive summary was quite good, and I don't see any reason why this shouldn't move forward. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Did I include the corporate officer be authorized? Did I do that one?
I think you've just done A.
Okay. That the corporate officer be authorized, sorry,
I don't think any of this has been done yet.
you don't think any of that's been done?
No, just received.
Really?
Just received.
Huh. Okay, I should read that then. Yeah, okay. That the development variance permit DV 2D 23, as attached in the April 3rd, 2023 report from the CAO, be approved, and that the corporate officer be authorized to issue the permit.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice, Director Wally, second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Request for subdivision frontage relief, that the report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Second, Vinesh.
Discussion? You have anything? All in favor? Director Rice?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carried, and that the frontage relief request by Couverton and Timber West Forest Limited, the proposed lots 1 to 5, is shown as the plan of subdivision attached for the April 12th, 2023 report from the CAO officer be denied.
So moved.
Director Mawhinney,
Second, Vinesh.
Vinesh, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed?
This is just electoral areas.
Oh, I apologize. Electoral, it says right there, all electoral areas. I'll just read to the right. Motion is carried. Consultation process. CP 1D 23, RZ 1D 23, Couverton, Timber West, that the report from the CAO be received. All directors.
So moved.
Director Mawhinney, Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? See none, motion is carried. And that the First Nations consultation process and the agency referral list the outline on April 12th, 2023 report from the CAO for application of the CP 1D 23, RZ 1D 23, Timber West be approved.
So moved.
Director Mawhinney,
Second, Vinesh.
Vinesh, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. permit required for farm buildings, that the report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director Rice. Sorry. Was second, Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And that the bylaw 158 be amended to provide an exemption from building permits requirements for low human occupancy farm buildings in electoral area D.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice,
Second, Mawini.
Director Mawini, discussion. Sorry, human occupancy farm buildings? Is that where I put my in-laws, or? Sorry. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that, right? Oh, sorry. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Transit shelter improvements, electoral area D. That the report from the CAO be received.
Move
Se-
receipt.
Director
Second,
Rice,
Mawini.
Director Morwini, discussion.
Chair. Just a few things for my residents. Area D's had a transit service for quite a few years, and yet over the years, there really hasn't been a whole lot of improvement to the infrastructure that supports that transit service. So to put that in context, Area D's got 16 bus stops, and it was only 3 years ago that 8 of those bus stops were finally upgraded with concrete pads, and that was thanks to staff from the city of Campbell River that managed to get that done. In context, Area D only has one active bus shelter that has been covered in graffiti for the past how many years? And we have 2 bus shelters that have been wasting away for the years in decommissioned transit sites. So what I'm trying to do with our transit services is bring the service up to something that is presentable and respectable and something that the community is going to use. For anybody that has seen the weather that we've had last week, you can imagine standing out on Highway 19A waiting for a bus stop when you're exposed to all of those southeasterlies. So this is really thankful to staff for bringing this forward. I think it's going to help with next year's planning when we look at budgets, as we start acquiring some new infrastructure. Certainly we want to be able to maintain those structures and not have them merely covered in graffiti for years on end. So thank you very much for staff for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor and receipt? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the report outlining the transit shelter improvements within electoral D that could be undertaken with $20,000 currently budget be prepared for further consideration.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice.
Second, Vinesh.
Vinesh. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Thank you. Cayukic water system requirements. Report from the CAO. Director Wally.
Second.
Director Rice. Anything to add? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Saybird Valley solid waste service rates, that the report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director Wally?
Second, Mawini.
Mawini, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And a bylaw to amend the rates, charges for the use of the Saybird Valley Solid Waste Collection Service be prepared for further consideration.
So moved.
Director Wally.
Second, Mawini.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the contract amendment with the Waste Management to include provisions for additional bags, receptacles be prepared for further consideration.
So moved.
Director Wally,
Second, Mawini.
Director Mawini, Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Grant opportunity. Evacuation route planning and tsunami notification. Receive a report from the CAO.
So moved, Colburn.
Second.
Second, Mawini.
Discussion? And Sean will speak to the matter first. Mr. Koopman.
So through the board, I'm here today to please receive your blessing for a resolution to bring in a consultant through a grant to update two of our different emergency plans, the Quadra Island evacuation plan and our tsunami notification plan. We have as partners that have expressed interest in being part of this grant, the Hadasat Chinnikett First Nation, Cayuga Cheklisset First Nation, and Uchatlat First Nation, and the village of Sabalas, with Zilbalas passing their resolution in support last night. You might have noticed that two partners that have interest in these plans are not present on the staff report. The Weewekai First Nation have been approached and asked to be a partner for this grant. They have not gotten back to us on that yet. And the Moahat Muchalat First Nation, which have interest on the West Coast, I'm actually assisting them in the village of Gold River in their separate grant application to this. But the fact that neither of these nations are official partners does not change the scope of our grant application, nor exclude us from ensuring they're consulted in the plan updates if this grant is received.
Thank you. Discussion? Continue. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the application for the 2023 Evacuation Route Planning Public Notification Grant Program for enhancing emergency response on behalf of local government and First Nations entitled identified in the April 21st, 2023 report from the CAO be approved, and that the regional district commit to the overall management of the grant if the application is successful.
So moved, Colburn.
Second, Mawini.
Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Koopman? No?
With many thanks.
With many thanks. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. I guess number 10, the Community Resilience Investment Grant, local use of wood chips. The report from the CAO be received, please.
So moved, Colburn.
Second, Director Wally. Discussion. Mr. Koopman, do you have something to add to it?
So on November 23rd, 2022, this board passed a resolution authorizing the regional district to apply for $300,000 for this grant. While we haven't officially received the grant yet, it is incoming soon, so it's non-officially official. Part of the activities that the board approved were wood chipping for road accessible properties in electoral area A and D. What we started with this grant last year was putting out calls to community organizations for the wood chips that come from this grant under the UBCM criteria that they just be disposed of 100 meters from structures, so out of that Fire Smart Zone 3 zone. And when we put out communication to the public asking for applications for wood chips, we only received one from a community organization in the service area. And sorry, I should have mentioned that we're also going to be doing this chipping on Reed Island. So the Surge Narrows Parents Association have put in a grant for that with the intention to use the wood chips to cover their playground, which is direly needed. It's a mud pit right now. But two of the other applications we received are either out of the proposed service areas or from non-community organizations. So that's a bit about the history, and there are some options in the staff report for your considerations about how the regional district should proceed.
Director Vanish.
Through the chair, a question, how Quadra and Cortez were not being offered this year, is that just a matter of sort of like every other year different locations based on the budget you're working with?
So through the chair to Director Von Esch, different locations for each community. Quadra has gone over budget with this amount the last 2 years. That's a separate conversation. Cortez, the reason we didn't go for it this year is this grant can allow for $50,000 per electoral area, and fire smart renovations for community buildings is an eligible criteria. Manson's Hall has about $80,000 worth of project that they want to undertake. They received a grant for $25,000 for that. So talking with Tammy in the SCCA, I said, I will max out the SRD's $50,000. So if the SRD gets the grant, $50,000 from us, $25,000 from their grant, and that allows them to undertake those fire smart renovations to that important community building.
Great, thanks for clarifying. I guess my real question is like around the Cortez community, like whether there'll be fire chipping in the future, like sort of what the plan might be for, not necessarily the use, but just the people to be able to get rid of wood.
Yeah, through the chair to Director Von Esch, for Cortez, we aim to get back to the chipping next year. This was a special one-time thing in partnership with the SCCA.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Davis.
Yeah, I was just curious where the approved disposal site is generally?
So last year, we didn't have any disposal sites from Area A or D, so they went to Pacific Wood Waste in Campbell River, which recycles them. On Quadra, we had a point on Sutil Road and up on Charrier Road where the chips are biodegrading and will be handed back to farmers as compost in 2 or 3 years. On Cortez, the Seniors Association is using it for their trail maintenance. The Dillon Creek Restoration Project and Linnea Farm use the chips, and there's one other disposal site on Cortez, but I'm sorry, it escapes me right now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we're still on receipt. Any other further discussion? Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. I was curious if it would be possible to combine option A and B, if there were community members or groups in areas C or B that are interested in wood chips, rather than have them go to a commercial facility for processing. Is it possible to do that? To offer them to residents of areas A and D, and then as well C or B if there's interest?
So through the chair to the director, the previous board of which some of you were a part of passed the resolution that the regional district should only consider allocating the wood chips to community groups that serve a public purpose.
Part of the reason that I'm asking is because I just recently saw a couple days ago that the school on Quadra Island is really looking for a lot of wood chips for their watershed restoration project that they're working on. So I was wondering if that would be potentially a possibility.
Through the chair, is the watershed within 100 meters of a structure?
I'm not good at distances, so I'm going to refrain from answering that.
Any other discussion? Still a receipt? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And this is where I need somebody to jump in. That the regional board supports option. Director Rice
I would move option C.
supports option C as outlined in the April 21, 2023 report from the CAO. Do I have a second? No second. Okay, so option C is defeated. Anybody have another suggestion for an option? A, B, Director Mawhinney?
Could I move that we can create D?
You can if you like.
Okay. I would move that the regional district offer the wood chips other than the Reed Island wood chips to any applicants that are prepared to pick up the wood chips at a central location in electoral areas A or D provided that the applicant sign a suitable liability waiver to protect the public, and that the regional district allow transport of said wood chips to applicants on Quadra and Cortez Islands with the cost of transport to be borne by the applicants.
Director Vonesh, second. Further discussion? Director Colburn?
And that's still with the understanding that they are community groups that would be given them to.
So through the chair to the board, the application that we got from Cortez was from a community group. The application we got from Quadra was a private entity with no public use of the wood chips. And should the wood chips go to I gotta scratch that last part.
So we're going to need clarification on the motion in terms of, does it include public or private?
Well, the original option was for public people, right?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Yates.
what I heard was that it be offered to any applicant, and I'm just not sure if that includes any applicant or just public entities or public and private, so I guess that was my question.
I'll make a friendly amendment and I just add public before applicants on the part B of the new D.
Director Colburn.
This is really going into my memory banks, but because this is a fire smart activity, was the previous board not concerned about fire safe activities if it was left to the public and it wasn't a service provider in the area? It seems to be in my memory that was the stipulation that the previous board had put on there because of those concerns.
Through the chair, that's correct.
And just to clarify, I meant public service applicants there for my amendment, not just public applicants.
And in the current
sorry.
option of A, it does say to any applicants that are prepared to pick up the wood chips and sign a waiver to protect the public. I assume that the waiver would be saying that you are storing them without further than 300 meters, is that what you said? Or 100 meters away from a building?
You might, if I may, Mr. Chair, jump in and say at the end of the resolution, in accordance with SRD policy, and that'll take all this out of consideration.
I can accept that.
The motion's been made.
Yeah, I think, it's from my understanding, is if you support that, I think you can vote on the motion. It's a combination of A and B, and at the end of B says in accordance with SRD policy.
There you go. So the regional board supports option AB with the amendment on the regional district's policies be outlined in the April 21st, 2023 report from the CAO. Do I have a motion, please? Oh,
Can
we
we
already have
have
the
that
motion. Yeah.
written down somewhere so we can actually read it?
It is actually, Director Davis, so it was, from what I understood hearing it, is option A, and then she continued with option B, and then at the end of option B, just add the words in accordance with SRD policy. Am I correct, Director Mulroney?
Yes, you are. That's exactly what my plan was.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Code of Conduct Review, that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Director Wally, Director Colburn, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in line with the board's direction, we have scheduled an update to the Code of Conduct review meeting. We're using the consultant that we used to create the Code of Conduct bylaw several years ago, and we are offering that Thursday, May 11th would be a suitable day for that.
That's on receipt. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And B, that the review of the board's code of conduct be scheduled as meeting of the Committee of the Whole for Wednesday, May 11th, 2023, commencing at 12 o'clock noon. If you arrive at 12:05, you don't get paid.
I will make
Just
them-
kidding, just kidding.
I would make that motion if it was Wednesday, the 10th, or Thursday, the 11th.
Board meeting's on the 10th, so let's say
10th is out, because we have a board meeting.
So I would, yeah, as written, except for not Wednesday, May 11th, as Thursday, May 11th. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. That we have a motion, we have a second. Director Wally, do we have further discussion? Do we have all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And the proposed regional fire administration support study, that the report from the CAO be received. Second, Director Rice. Director Wally?
Yeah, I have come to support this. I think it's a good idea. I think it's going to save us all money. And Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion after receipt.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Just to let you all know, I support this 100%. However, I do have to bring this back to my council. I've discussed it with the CAO just here, but without having this information prior to our council meeting that was a week ago, I do have to bring it back, but I do fully support it.
Is that a request for deferral?
I think it would be, so I'll just jump in if I can. We're still in receipt, and I understand Director Raleigh would have a motion on there, so it's up to the board what to decide. It has always been an option that if municipal directors wanted to bring back an item for consultation with their council, they were always able to defer and do that. So the chair doesn't have to, but it is his desire to, it sounds like. So what the board could do with this, it looks like there's support for it, till the next board meeting is not gonna, create a significant issue at all for us. So if the board supports the deferral motion, it really isn't gonna have much of any impact. I'll just bring it back in 2 weeks' time, and then the chair can add his discussion from his council if he likes.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we're just on receipt. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Director Wally?
I'll move a deferral motion then to the next meeting and just point out that I was hoping to move option B, so that would be my intent at the next meeting. So if you'd like to consider that in the meantime, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, and if I can, just on that note, so interesting here. I preach to everyone that every individual service has to have its own service there. We have general admin that catches a few things in here. So it was brought to my attention that could we possibly look at this as within the general admin? My first instinct was no, but upon further examination, communicating with municipal affairs, this specific service could be built within the general admin service. So I think there's an advantage to that. One, don't get it in your mind that you can shove anything in general admin. I don't want the board to think that. But in this service, one of the advantages could be that you don't have to go out for public approval to create a new service. And because general admin is a service right now, you could hit the ground rolling with this service. We're too late for requisition collection on new services, but if it's embedded in an existing service, you could, say, run that service into a slight deficit for the year, knowing that. So a little bit of an advantage there. We haven't done that before, but it was brought to my attention, and Municipal Affairs was fine with it. So.
I'll second that, Vinesh.
Thank you. Further discussion? Director Kerr.
Thank you. And just a question on that in terms of the cost factor for the different communities. The difference, maybe if the CAO could go over the difference between a service and the cost to the different communities to be involved in that, and the general administration.
Sure, so thanks. It's always enjoy explaining that to the board. So in general, admin is a service we all pay into. So we pay per requisition based on assessments. And so if it's a regional service like fire admin, it would mirror general admin. So there's no financial difference between having a regional service on its standalone or in this case under general admin. So it falls under the same requisition limit. So again, no difference really to the board in terms of finances.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, deferral is carried. Okay, thank you. Perfect Mind Agreement.
Move receipt of the report from the CAO.
Thank you. Second? Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the chair and the corporate officer be authorized to execute a 3-year extension of the Perfect Mind Agreement for the Strathcona Gardens.
So moved, Mawini.
Second, Colburn.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Request for financial assistance, Seaward Future Society, that the report from the CAO be received. Director Wally.
Second, Colburn.
Director Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And that the board approve a grant for Seaward Futures in the amount of $700 to assist with the RCMP Bike Rodeo and Canada Day expenses to be paid from electoral area grant and aid budget.
So moved.
Director Wally.
Second.
Director Mawini Rice. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Thank you. Request for financial assistance from Cortez Community Radio Society. Did the report from the CAO be received?
Move receipt.
Director
Second,
Bonish.
Colburn.
Director Colburn, discussion?
I'll just say a few words. This is a small grant that will provide seniors on the island access to a tech expert, helping them with banking, communications, connection to their family using their digital devices, starting next month and going into the fall.
So, further discussion? All in favor of receipt? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the board approve a grant for the Cortez Community Radio Society in the amount of $2,000 to assist with technical support, digital literacy issues to be paid from electoral B grant and aid budget. Motion, please.
So moved.
Director Mawini.
Oh.
Director Rice. Further discussion. Director Davis.
Yeah, if this motion is going to pass, can we spell digital correctly?
I could barely say it correctly, never mind spell it correctly, but okay. We probably could. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Bylaws, number 342, Strathcona Gardens borrowing. The report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director Rice.
Second,
Chapman, discussion. Director Rice.
Just a few things for context to my community. It's pretty scary when you take a look at a number of $64 million, but I really appreciate the fact that the report reminded me how long that this item's been dragging on. So when I go back to the report, I see that, staff have worked very hard at trying to obtain grants for the gardens, and it just hasn't happened. So it's nice to see that this project is moving forward. I do know that, while we have concerns in Area D, how much the gardens costs, I also have the knowledge that there are a lot of families in Area D that enjoy the facility. one of the things that I would encourage some of the new directors to do is to actually go and take a look at the facility yourself. I think when you go in the building, the first thing you're going to notice is it's a building that's well beyond its prime date. But the other thing that you'll notice with the building is that there's a lot of history there. And that history, I think, is quite telling. And the building has served the regional district quite well over the years. So I'm happy to support this. You know, I would like to see more support from the regional district, but that's neither here nor there. And I think that this is a positive step forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. CAO?
Thank you. Appreciate the comments, Director Rice, and it kind of inspires a thought, though, maybe a learning opportunity, because we've talked about housing quite a bit today. And Director Rice is correct. It was the previous board's decision to pursue grants heavily on this, and you can see our success level has not been good, but years and years has gone by. The construction industry has increased. And so I personally hope you'll lend your mind to, when you're thinking about projects, think about, if you're going to lean heavily into grants, there's a significant waiting time with those. There's no guarantee of success. And then the industry passes you by and costs are significantly more. So this is just a little reflection for those that are not aware. When we made grant applications, part of the process to help bring your application to the top of the heap is more further you get into the process, like second, third reading of bylaws, design stages. So at one point, one of the requirements is that we had second reading of a bylaw. And you can see the amount we had there, and that the reason it was that amount, because we had collectively a board anticipating that kind of grant being received. And so when you look at the gap there, you go, holy cow, what's really changed? Nothing's really changed other than, I guess, the lack of optimism towards working towards grants and waiting. So, you know, when you look at those numbers, that's what's been created from just waiting on it. It would have been, you know, in hindsight, we're all geniuses, but looking back, we would have been far better off engaging in the building of it 5 years ago instead of keep pursuing this.
Director Wally?
Yeah, just a question, staff. What would be the amortization period for 64 million?
I think we have it under 25 or 30 years, a long period.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry. Director Mawhinney.
Thank you. I'm assuming, or I'm thinking that the two areas that are financially responsible for this are the Campbell River and Area D. Is that correct? And if that is in fact the case, then I'm curious how the alternative approval process works. Are only the residents of those two areas the ones who are going to participate in the alternative approval process?
Mr. Yates?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, in short, the answer would be that those who bear financial responsibility would be the areas that would be asked to essentially cast a vote through the AAP process.
Director Mawhinney?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention that it is a big price tag, and I hope that there is a robust, multifaceted plan for community sharing of the AAP so that it doesn't end up as a surprise to community members later. We went through something with an AAP on Quadra Island and Area C last year, and the lack of community notification turned out to be a pretty sticky point for some folks.
Thank you. CAO?
So on that point, we have had years of consultation, community groups, user groups, youth groups in the facility, First Nations groups. So if anyone claims to be unaware of this, we will have to fact check that, because we have done years of consultation in the community.
Okay, all in favor on receipt? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. That the third reading of the bylaw number 342 be rescinded. Motion, please.
Move recommendation.
Thank you. Director
Second,
Rice.
Colburn.
Goulburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that bylaw 342 be amended by deleting the words 27,000 million, what's his name? Austin Powers. 27 million in the sixth clause of the recital in section 1 of the substitution, oh, geez, that was close. Therefore, the words 64,670,000
So moved, Colburn.
Second.
Director Rice, further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. That was a tough one to spit out. I don't know why. Okay, that bylaw number 342 be given third reading as amended.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice,
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the approval of the electors, bylaw 342, be authorized to be obtained using the alternative approval process.
Move recommendation.
Second,
Director Rice, Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Bylaw 484, Race Point Fire Protection.
Move receipt.
Thank you, Director Wally.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion? Director Wally? Oh, your mic is off. Your mic is off there. Oh, there you go.
After receipt, I will make a motion.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the board support,
Option B, that no further action be taken with respect to bylaw number 484, being Race Point Fire Protection Service establishing bylaw 2023.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Bylaw 493, Electoral Area D, Advisory Planning Commission. Report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director Rice. Director Wally. Discussion? Director Rice.
First of all, thank you to staff for getting this all together very quickly. This is something that has bothered the residents in Area D for quite some time. They've always expressed concerns over the advisory panel committee, how those members get selected. And of course, some of the decisions that have been made over the years have been questioned. So quite welcome to see that we now have a public and transparent process going forward. And I think it's quite important that, as a director, that I keep myself at an arm's length from this committee so that proper recommendations can be made without any influence. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that bylaw 493, being a bylaw established on an advisory committee, planning commission for electoral area D, Oyster River, Buttle Lake, the regional district, now be introduced and read for the first time.
Move recommendation.
Second, Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And you are correct, this is electoral areas only. And that the rule be suspended by bylaw 493 to be given second and third reading.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice. Director Wally. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the bylaw 493, being electoral area D, Advisory Planning Commission, established bylaw 2023, be reconsidered and finally passed and adopted.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice, Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Bylaw 495, electoral area D, zoning, livestock amendments. The report for the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director
Second,
Rice,
Mawini.
Director Mawini, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Electoral areas again. That bylaw 495, being a bylaw to amend the zoning regulations applicable to Area D, Oyster River Butter Lake, be introduced and read for the first time.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice,
Second, Mawini.
Director Mawini, discussion? All in favor? All in favor, seeing none opposed, carried. And the bylaw 495 be given second reading.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice,
Second,
Director
Mawini.
Mawini. All in discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And the requirement to hold a public hearing on bylaw 495 be waived in accordance with S.4642 of the Local Government Act.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice.
Second, Vanesh.
Director Vanesh. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Bylaw 496, electoral area D, building height restrictions. That the report from the CAO be received.
Move receipt.
Director Rice.
Second, Mawini.
Discussion? All in favor? This is everybody vote? No? All directors on this one.
I did have a discussion item there.
Did you want to talk about it now? Yes, please. Sure.
Just a few things for the public record. Thank you for staff for bringing this forward. One of the things that I know is always interesting is when we have bylaws that are not working or bylaws where, you know, they're always seeking variances on items. When it pertains to development, a variance takes time. So I'm happy to see that this bylaw is being amended so that it's in alignment with other jurisdictions. Thank you.
I think you were supposed to keep talking for longer.
I did my best.
You did your best? That was your best? Sorry, it's that, you know, change of life. Okay. So, we're still on receipt? Yes. I think you need to speak slower. All in favor? Opposed? That's all directors. Opposed? Seeing none, carried. 5B, that the bylaw 496 be given, or pardon me, being a bylaw to amend the zoning regulations for electoral D, Oyster River, Butter Lake, now be introduced and read for the first time.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice.
Second,
Director
Mawini.
Mawini. Discussion? Electoral areas only? In favor? Okay. Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Okay, that was, now we're going to C, right? Let bylaw 496 be given second reading.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice.
Second, Vanesh.
Vanesh, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the requirement to hold a public hearing on bylaw 496 be waived in accordance with S.4642 of the Local Government Act.
Move recommendation.
Director Rice. Second. Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. I don't know, does it seem like to anybody else that this is all about electoral area D?
It was a good day.
I don't know, I'm just getting this feeling, correspondence. Rural Economic Development, that the April 11, 2023 news release from the from the province of BC regarding new funding for rural economic development be received. Director Wally?
Second.
Director Mawini? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Comox Valley Sewage System Infrastructure. that the April 14th, 2023 news release from the province of BC regarding the funding sewage infrastructure in the Comox Valley Regional District be received. Director Rice, Director Chapman, CAO.
Thanks. I just have a quick comment on that. When I saw this, I kind of get alarmed when there's a grant program out there that we didn't see and I feel like we missed. So staff examined this, and to the best of our knowledge, and that's all of the staff here, there was no real grant program here. This was an award, as what I can gather from Treasury, and just an example of, again, lobbying your elected officials. This did not come from a true application-based grant program. It's a program that was partnered with the First Nations, and from what I can see, heavy advocating on behalf of the elected officials to a direct grant award to the Comox and the First Nations.
Director Chapman.
It just proves the point that the best way to approach the province is going down to Victoria and sitting in front of them and talking, and not going to this speed dating thing at UBCM. This is proof that proper lobbying down to Victoria works. And something, if we need to do, we should do.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think success comes from that. It comes from in-person. Directors have, budget within their general admin or EA to do that. And I always encourage it because, you look at the results, $30 million, that's a lot of money.
Director Wally.
Yeah, did we ever try that for the Strathcona Garden, 64 million?
Oh, yeah. And the city tried it for a number of highways projects or extension projects, and I saw Prince Rupert got 60 million for water, and these magically come out of these programs that I'd never seen before. So that's just pure advocacy.
All in favor? Opposed? See none, carried. Local infrastructure funding. Thank you.
Second, Colburn.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And then we flip to the last pay, new business. That the April 17th, 2023 news release from Civic Info BC regarding local infrastructure funding be received. No? Oh, did we already get that?
I would move that the addendum.
Oh, let's go to the addendum. I liked it so much I wanted to repeat it.
Second, Chapman.
That's on the addendum item. Discussion? Director Mawhinney? Are you? I'm glad you're here.
This is just, the motion was just to consider the addendum, not to put it on the floor.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the April 25th, 2023 report from Director Mawhinney be received.
Second.
Discussion, Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. I recently attended, as you can see, if you read this report, a virtual session that was put on by the province and organized by UBCM to explain the province's approach to implementing the Old Growth Strategic Review recommendations. And I thought it was pretty interesting. So I know that we are largely forestry dependent or somewhat dependent communities here at this board. So I thought that there might be other directors that would be interested in the information that was shared. And that's why I wrote this report.
Thank you. I personally appreciate it. Thank you very much. Anybody else for discussion? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Do we still have the members online? Have I been ignoring you all meeting, or? You're all muted. Did I put you to sleep or anything? You're still there? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Excellent. I just hopefully didn't miss anything that I saw you put your hand up or didn't.
Okay, thank you.
Who's Justin Fritz?
Hi there. My name is Justin Fritz. I'm joining from the Ministry of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation.
Okay, thank you.
So then I'm going to move that the report from the CAO be received about going into closed.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And that the meeting be closed to the public to consider matters deemed to fall within the parameters of subsections 90-1, excuse me, G, H, I, N, O, 92, A, and B of the Community Charter.
So moved.
Director Colburn.
Second.
Director Chapman. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Closed, termination? No? Not yet? Do we have to do the close first? Yeah. Oh, let's see. Okay, so let's take, before we go into closed session, let's take an 8-minute break.